We got cut off just a little bit at the end there, but I wanted to mention just one more thing, which is that observational studies also tend to be a lot cheaper in both time and money than experiments. Now, just scroll back up here for a second. So, observational studies are cheaper than design experiments for sure. Sample surveys are even cheaper than that. Sample surveys are the cheapest one out here. That's why they get done the most. Gallup poll, CNN poll, Fox News poll, BBC News Service poll, pick a poll. Those are all sample surveys, right? They're the cheapest things to produce. The census, of course, is very expensive and time consuming. That's why the government has to put a lot of money into it. It is more expensive and less expensive than designed experiments. It just depends on the size of the population. Okay, but in general, observational studies and designed experiments about the same type of population, observational study will be cheaper. Okay, all right. So now there's three types of observational studies we're going to be interested in. There's the cross-sectional study, which is just a generic study that collects information about individuals at this moment in time or over a very short period of time. Then there's the case control studies, where you look back over time at existing records, or you ask people about, their history over the last, 20 years or whatever. For example, suppose I wanted to know the overall health effects for people that were in Nazi concentration camps and those who were not. So I didn't put them into the concentration camps. I, as the researcher, can't go back in time and in my time machine and do that. So all I can do is observe at this moment in time who has better health, those that were, those that weren't, that kind of thing, right? But it's all, looking back to the past up till the current time. And then there's the cohort study. A cohort study, there's a really famous one, I can't remember what it is, but it's like 80,000 nurses that they started studying in the 1960s, and they kept with for 50 years, and they observe, the health patterns of those people over all that time. Okay. Okay, so let's go down here, and we're to determine which of these is cross-sectional, which is case control, and which is cohort. Now, this is a classic example of you're going to pause me, and we'll come back. So I'm going to press pause. You do too. Okay, I hope you read them all. That's why you paused. If you didn't pause and read them all, then read them all now. Right? Okay, so now which one's which? Well, unfortunately, I kind of gave you a cue down here, but even if this had said groups, you could have figured it out. Okay, so the deal is, on this particular one, they're looking for, at the end of the volleyball tournament, who had better skin, right? So they start off, at the beginning of the volleyball tournament, they determine, what people are wearing and all of that. And then at the end of the tournament, see that? At the end of the tournament, then they compare skin from both teams for texture, sun damage, and so on. Okay? So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, hey, if they said, one team gets to wear sunscreen, the other team doesn't, isn't that an experiment? No, it's not, because they weren't randomly selecting. Right? So they grab a group and then they follow that group through. So this is cohort, right? They're grabbing a group, each team, and they're following them through the weekend and seeing what happens. Okay, that's a cohort. Now what about C? Okay, so they have a group of former lifeguards who wore zinc oxide with another group of lifeguards who wore absorbent sunscreens. So these are former lifeguards. So this was in the past. So they're saying, hey, you wore zinc oxide, you wore sunscreen, let's compare your skin now. Okay, so that is definitely the case control. Sorry, I couldn't remember the name of it. Case control, right? So you didn't just dictate what people got, but you're looking now saying, hey, back in the past, what did you wear? And let me look at your skin now and see how it was damaged. The cohort, of course, is tracking them through that weekend tournament, keeping tabs on them through the whole thing. Okay, not relying on people's memories of what they wore, if you will. Whereas the case control is relying on people's memory. And this one up here is the cross-sectional. You're just seeing where people are at this point in time, right? They're drinking more. Does that, they drink more now. How's their liver disease now? Drink less now. How's their liver disease? I'm just looking at it right now. I'm not looking back in time, and I'm not grabbing them now to look at them for the next 20 years. That would be a cohort, right? And if I'm asking them about their past drinking habits, that would be case control. But if I'm asking them about just now, cross-section, let's get a cross-section of what the world's looking like, that's this. All right, we're done with 1, 2.